I found my ex living on the I knew it was him from the way he held his shoulders, tight and small, like he was trying to hide from the world. I never thought I would see Marcus again, especially not like this, sitting on a cardboard box outside a grocery store with a paper cup in front of him. I was coming back from the library with books under my arm when I spotted him on the corner, wearing clothes that didn't fit right and shoes with holes in them. My breath stopped. Everything around me got quiet and still. There he was, skinny, face covered with dirt, eyes looking down, hair messy and gray. And I knew right away it was the man who used to be my husband. I couldn't move my feet. I just stood there on the sidewalk, frozen like ice. I remembered when he walked out of our house one morning and never came back. He left a short note on the kitchen table that said, "This is better for you." That day broke my heart into pieces that took years to put back together. I went from being angry to being sad, and the sadness never really left. And now, after all this time, I was looking at him sitting on the street like someone nobody saw or cared about. Part of me wanted to turn around and walk away so I wouldn't have to feel anything. But something stronger made me walk closer. One step, then another. My shoes made noise on the ground, and he looked up fast. Eyes met. For just a second I saw that he knew who I was. Then his face changed, and I could see he was scared and sorry at the same time. His hands started shaking. He tried to move back like I was someone bad coming to hurt him. "Marcus," I said, but my voice sounded strange and far away. He looked down at the ground, too ashamed to look at me. "You shouldn't be seeing me," he said quietly. "Just go away. Please." But before we continue, I want to ask you something special. Please click the subscribe button and give this video a like. This helps me know you like my stories and want to hear more. And tell me in the comments which city you're watching from right now. Okay, let's keep going. I didn't walk away. I stayed right there with my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked at him carefully, at his broken shoes, at his hands that looked hurt and cold, at his face that looked hungry and tired. This man didn't look anything like the Marcus I used to know. The man who wore nice clean shirts and talked about building things and fixing things with happy eyes. "Tell me why you're living like this," I said, and my voice was shaking. "After everything, I need to know the truth." He pressed his mouth shut and looked around like he was worried someone might hear us. Then he shook his head slowly. "You should never have found me," he whispered. "I did everything to keep you away from this." I took another step closer. I could smell the street on him, the dirt, the sadness. "Away from what?" "Yes. What did you do, Marcus?" That's when he looked up at me with tears in his eyes and said something that made my whole body feel cold. "It was to keep you safe." I felt like I couldn't breathe. My legs felt weak and wobbly. I grabbed his arm so I wouldn't fall down. "Keep me safe from what?" I said, almost crying. Marcus tried to stand up, but his body was too weak. He fell right there on the dirty ground like a tree falling down. I screamed for someone to help us. Some people walking by came over. We called for an ambulance. While we waited, I sat on the ground and put his head on my lap, just like I used to do when we were young and he got sick. I never thought I would hold him like this again, so weak and hurt. In the ambulance, the helper said Marcus was very sick because he hadn't eaten enough food or drunk enough water for a long time. I could barely understand the words. All I could see was his pale face and those words he said. "It was to keep you safe." At the hospital, the doctors took him to a special room. They told me he had been sleeping outside for a long time, that he never let anyone help him, and that he had no papers to show who he was. When he woke up many hours later, I was sitting right next to him. "Go home," he said as soon as he opened his eyes. "You don't need to worry about me anymore. You're still part of my life, part of my story," I said back. "And I'm not leaving until you tell me everything." He closed his eyes like he was thinking very hard. Finally, with a sad, broken voice, he said, "I didn't lose everything because I made bad choices. I lost everything because someone made me." "Who made you?" "Yes." He didn't answer. He just turned his head away and looked at the wall. His silence hurt more than any words could. That night, I stayed in a chair next to his bed, still trying to understand what was happening. I thought about our marriage, about the fights we had that I never understood, about how he just left one day, about all the bills and problems that came after he was gone. I never knew why any of it happened. When morning came and he opened his eyes again, he looked at me with the saddest face I'd ever seen. "Everything I lost so you could stay alive," he said. "And you hated me for it." Felt like crying. "I didn't know anything," I said. "I thought you didn't love me anymore." A tear fell down his dirty face. "That's what I needed you to think." Right then, I knew that everything I believed for all those years was a lie. That all my anger had been built on something that wasn't true. And I understood that him living on the street wasn't bad luck. It was because he gave up everything for me. I didn't know yet who hurt him or why. I didn't know what danger had been around me back then. But something woke up inside me, a strong feeling that I needed to find out the whole truth. I slowly touched his hand. "Rest now," I told him. "This time you're not alone." As I watched him close his eyes under the bright hospital lights, I knew that finding him on the street wasn't just by chance. It was the beginning of learning a truth that would change everything forever. Marcus slept almost the whole next day. The medicine made him sleepy, and his body was so tired from years of being hurt and hungry. I stayed next to him, not really knowing why, just feeling like if I left, something important would be lost. As I watched him sleep, memories started coming back to me like a river. I met him when I was 28 years old. He was a man with big dreams, kind words, and strong arms. He worked hard every day but always had time to look at me like I was the best thing in his life. He promised me a good life, a home we could call ours, trips to nice places, and peace. And for many years he kept those promises. We weren't rich, but we were happy in our way. I cooked, took care of our home, and made our money last. He worked, built things, fixed things, and dreamed about the future. Our marriage wasn't perfect. We argued sometimes. We had quiet days when we didn't talk much. We had small hurts that never fully healed. But I never thought it would end the way it did, cold and empty, without shouting, without explaining, without a single word to help me understand. One morning he just didn't come home from work. 2 days went by with no word from him. I went to the police, to hospitals, to his job. Nobody knew where he was. On the 3rd day, a man in a suit came to my house with a white envelope. Inside was a short letter written in Marcus's handwriting. "I'm sorry. This is better for you. Don't look for me." That was the day my world started breaking apart. For weeks after, I called him over and over. I wrote him letters. His phone number stopped working. Nobody would talk to me. And slowly more bad things started happening. Bills I didn't know about came in the mail. Bank accounts were empty. Papers came saying our house would be taken away. In less than 6 months I lost everything. My husband, my home, my stable life. I had to move into one tiny room and start my whole life over when I was 47 years old. Many people looked at me with sad eyes. Others looked at me like I had done something wrong. Some even said it was my fault he left. "You must have made him leave," they said. I let them think whatever they wanted because I didn't even understand it myself. For years I was so angry at him. Angry that he left without telling me why. Angry that he left me alone with all the shame and all the bills and all the memories. Angry that he didn't fight to stay. That he just disappeared like our life together meant nothing. But that night, sitting next to his hospital bed, my anger started to crack and break for the first time. When he woke up again, I asked the nurses to leave us alone for a bit. I closed the door quietly. Marcus looked at me with tired, broken eyes. "Tell me everything," I said firmly. "Don't lie to me anymore. There's no reason to now." He stayed quiet for a long time. His breathing was heavy and slow. Finally he started talking. "The day I left, that same day, I was supposed to die. I felt like my heart stopped." "What are you saying?" I whispered. "Because that's what they told me would happen," he said. "And I chose something different." I stared at him, confused. "Who told you that?" He swallowed hard. "Bad people, Elena. Very dangerous, bad people." Everything in his face looked true. Not the kind of truth that yells, but the heavy kind that hurts. I was blamed for stealing money that I never stole, he continued. A big project where I only wrote my name on papers they forced me to sign. When I wanted to tell the truth, they showed me fake proof, people who lied about me, and a picture of you. I felt shivers go down my back. They told me that if I talked, if I tried to prove I was innocent, you would be the one to pay for it. The words cut through me like sharp knives. So that's why you left? I asked with a tiny voice. I didn't leave, he said bitterly. I erased myself. He told me then that he agreed to take the blame for something he didn't do. He signed papers, gave away our money, let our bank accounts be emptied so everyone would believe the story. So those bad men wouldn't hurt me. You had to hate me, he said. It was the only way to keep you from asking questions. I cried quietly, squeezing my hands together so I wouldn't fall apart. All these years, all the pain I went through was to protect me. Yes. To save your life, he answered. I covered my mouth with my hand. I felt all those years of anger falling away, leaving only hurt and emptiness. Why didn't you ever come back? I whispered. Because they were still watching, he said. Every time I tried to get close to you, someone reminded me that you were only alive because I stayed away. I understood then that his life on the street wasn't just bad luck. It was something forced on him. That night I didn't sleep at all. I walked up and down the hospital hallways with my head full of new thoughts, rewriting my whole life story, my anger, my loneliness, my pain. It had all been part of the same plan to control us. The next morning I came back to his bed feeling different, feeling stronger. You know I can't pretend I didn't hear this, I told him. I'm not the scared woman I was before. He looked at me with worry in his eyes. Don't dig up the past, he begged. The past can kill you. Silence kills too, I said. And I've been silent for too many years. He tried to sit up a little. If we talk, they will come for us. Let them come, I said without shaking. This time you won't face them alone. For the first time in a long time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself, but fear for me. You don't know who you're messing with, he whispered. You didn't know how many years of my life you were stealing with your silence either, I said back. He pressed his lips together and cried without making any sound. That same day, strange people started showing up at the hospital. Men who didn't look like they were visiting family. They asked questions about beds that didn't exist. They watched from far away. Marcus grabbed my hand hard. They've already started watching, he whispered. I looked at him with the calm of someone who has already lost too much to be scared anymore. Then the end of this story has already started too, because if you became invisible to save me, I'm now willing to be the woman who brings you back and makes the people who hurt you pay. The hospital didn't feel safe anymore. Every hallway felt like it had secrets. Every face I didn't know felt like a possible danger. Since Marcus told me the truth, my whole world changed. I wasn't just the woman who found her ex-husband living on the street anymore. Now I was part of a story full of fear, invisible enemies, and secrets bought with pain. That night while he slept, I sat in the waiting room with my head spinning. I thought about everything that happened after he disappeared. The bills that drowned me, the shame of asking people for help, the looks from people who thought I was abandoned because I deserved it. Every memory now had a new, dark meaning. It had all been a big trick to protect me, and I was the only one who didn't know. When morning came, I went back to his room. Marcus woke up slowly and with difficulty. I brought him some water. He looked at me like he was afraid I would be gone, like he thought the truth would scare me away. I'm still here, I told him. He nodded, looking relieved. We sat in silence for a few seconds until I broke it. I want the names, I said. It's not enough to just understand the past anymore. I need to know who destroyed you. He closed his eyes. His hand grabbed the bedsheet tight. Not all names should be said out loud, he said. Some names, when you say them once, can cost you your life. My life was already in danger and I didn't even know it, I answered. You won't carry this alone again. He took a long, deep breath. It all started with a big building project, he said. A very expensive job for the city. I was just the person in charge of making sure the work was done right, nothing more. But the contracts were full of tricks, fake companies, bills that were too high, money going to the wrong places. When I found out, I thought I should report it. His voice cracked and broke. That same night, I got my first threat. He explained that at first, he thought he could get away by paying them, by quitting his job, by disappearing. But they didn't just want him to be quiet. They wanted someone to blame. And he, with his good job and his clean name, was perfect for that. When they saw I wouldn't give in, he continued, they brought you into it. I felt my stomach tighten and hurt. They showed me pictures of you going in and out of our building, he said. Pictures of where you went, when you were alone, places where nobody would see if something happened. They told me it could all look like an accident. My hand went to my chest. I remembered some days when I felt like someone was following me but thought I was just being scared. I never knew it was real. That's when I agreed, he whispered. I signed everything they wanted. I gave them everything we had. I left without saying goodbye. You had to hate me so you wouldn't try to find me, so they would know I was doing what they wanted. I cried without making any noise. And everything they took from us? Yes. The bank accounts, the house? It was part of the price, he said. It had to look like I lost everything because I made mistakes. And you really did lose everything, I said, feeling bitter. Yes, he nodded. Because when monsters see they can take things, they never stop taking. He wanted to say more, but he started coughing hard and couldn't stop. I called for the nurse to come help. While she took care of him, I saw from the corner of my eye a man watching our hallway from the end. He was paying too much attention to be just a worried family member. When he saw me looking at him, he turned his face quickly and walked away. The fear came back like a cold wave washing over me. That afternoon, a doctor came to talk to me alone. He said Marcus needed more tests, that his body was very sick but getting a little better. Before he left, he lowered his voice. Be careful about visitors, he warned me. Today, 3 different people asked about him who don't seem like they know him. I felt my knees go weak and wobbly. I went back to Marcus's room with my mind made up about something. I can't just listen to half the story, I told him. If you're going to talk, talk now. We don't know how much time we have left. He looked at me with pain in his eyes. There's something I never told you, he said. That night before I disappeared, I left a box hidden under the old garage where I used to work. Nobody else knows it's there. Inside are the real papers that prove all the stealing and lying they did. My heart jumped. Why didn't you use them before? Because then you would have died, he said simply. But now that they know I'm here, maybe keeping quiet doesn't make sense anymore. We looked at each other for a long time. I understood that his silence hadn't just protected me. It had also protected many other people who didn't know about the bad things happening. I want to go get that box, I told him. No, he said sharply and loudly. It's too dangerous. It's more dangerous to just sit here and wait, I answered. You already gave up your life for me once. I won't let you do it again. He stayed quiet. Finally, he nodded like he had given up. In the back of the garage behind a shelf that's not real, he said. Everything is there. That night I barely slept at all. Every shadow in the hallway felt like a threat. Every sound felt like a warning. The next morning, I left the hospital with my heart beating fast and hard. I took a taxi to the old garage on the south side of town. It was almost empty now, nobody used it anymore. The place smelled old and dusty. I walked slowly, holding my breath. I found the shelf he told me about, moved heavy boxes out of the way, and touched the wall until I found a place that felt different. I dug with an old tool I found there. My hands were shaking when I felt the metal box under the dirt. Pulled it out. It was heavy and hard to lift. I opened it with the words Marcus had told me to use like a key. Inside were folders with papers, small computer sticks, contracts with real signatures, photos, recordings, enough proof to get many powerful people in trouble. I felt scared and brave at the same time. It wasn't enough to just know the truth. Now I was holding it in my hands. When I left the garage, I saw a car parked down the street that started moving right away. I walked without looking back to a busy corner with lots of people and went inside a store. I waited and watched. The car drove around and then went away. The game wasn't secret anymore. They knew. I went back to the hospital with the box hidden inside a normal shopping bag. Marcus was awake and waiting. When he saw my eyes, he knew I had done it. I didn't say anything, just nodded my head. Now they're not just chasing you and me, he said sadly. Now they're chasing the truth. Let them try, I said. This time I'm not going to hide it. In that moment, I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't cross back over. I wasn't just the woman who cried when she found her ex-husband picking up cans anymore. Now I was the person protecting a truth that could destroy powerful people. And the people who had played with our lives for years weren't the only ones who knew secrets anymore. I came back to the hospital holding the metal box against my chest like I was carrying something alive. Every step felt heavy, not just because I was scared of being followed, but because of what that box meant. Years and years of lies, unfairness, a life destroyed for no good reason. When I walked into Marcus's room again, he looked at me the way you look at someone coming back from a war. I found it, I said quietly, putting the bag under the bed. His eyes filled with tears. He closed them for a few seconds like he was saying thank you to God without words. Then he said, "There's no going back now." "There never was," I answered. I sat down next to his bed. For hours we didn't open the box. We just stayed quiet, listening to the sounds of the hospital, like we needed to get strong enough to face what was coming. Finally, with shaking hands, I opened it. Inside were folders marked with years and dates and stamps and names I didn't recognize, but Marcus did. There were pictures of building sites, maps, lists of money paid to people, and also papers about my own bank accounts, my house, my name written on things I never signed. I saw papers where I looked like I owed money I never borrowed. Contracts where my name was connected to fake companies I never heard of. Everything was made so that if anyone ever looked into it, it would seem like I was the bad one. I felt so dizzy I had to close my eyes. "All of this fell on me after you left," I whispered. "The bills, the people taking my house. I thought it was bad luck because you abandoned me." "It wasn't abandonment," he said with a broken voice. "It was a sacrifice, and even then, it wasn't enough to protect you completely." The pictures started bringing back buried memories. The day I was kicked out of my house and nobody would look me in the eye. The court paper that said I had no more savings. The shame of borrowing money from family who used to respect me. The nights I couldn't sleep wondering how to pay a bill I didn't make. The years when I became a burden to everyone. "I cleaned people's houses," I said with my throat burning and tight. "When I was in my 50s, I went hungry. I slept on other people's couches. And all that time, they were using my name to hide their stolen money." I held a paper tight between my fingers. "Why didn't you warn me, Marcus?" I asked, crying. "Even if they had killed me, at least I would have died knowing the truth." "No," he said desperately. "Because I still had one thing to trade for your life. You didn't know what was happening, but every time someone doubted if I would stay quiet, I showed them a photo of you to remind them why I was obeying." My tears fell onto the papers in my hands. "So my suffering was also part of the show," I said. "Yes," he nodded. "So it would look like you and I were both completely destroyed. So nobody would look any deeper." For days, I went back in my mind to each thing I had lost. Nothing had been by chance. Nothing had been bad luck. I had been carefully pushed to the edge so the blame would fall on one man, and on his wife who was dragged down with him. I walked out of the room stumbling on my own feet. I sat alone on a bench in the hallway. I looked at my old hands, marked by life, by the hard work I never understood why I had to do. Now the answer was right there. Someone decided I had to fall to save a group of criminals. That night I couldn't sleep again. I opened the box alone in a small room where nobody came in. I read the papers one by one, followed the dates. I found names I had heard on the news, last names connected to big companies, to government people, to men everyone respected. I, without knowing it, had been used as a cover for a huge network of criminals. And they hadn't just stolen Marcus's life. They had stolen mine too. When morning came, I went back to his room. I know everything I lost, I told him. Now I want to know who took it from me. He pressed his mouth shut tight. If we go all the way to the end, there will be no forgiveness, he said. Only people getting punished. Many will fall. I don't want blind revenge, I said. I want justice with real names and faces. He looked at me with a mix of being proud and being scared. That kind of justice kills slowly, he said. I died slowly for years too, I said without shaking. Now it's their turn to fall without hiding. From that day on, I stopped being just a woman hurt by the past. I started secretly calling the same people who had closed doors on me before. Banks, courts, old business partners. I used the papers in the box like a key to open those doors. Where they used to say no, now they listened in silence. I saw how things started to move. Some told me it was impossible. Others said it was too late. Few said it was dangerous. I know, I always said back. But danger chased me my whole life without me choosing it. Now I choose it. Marcus got worse during those days. His body couldn't fight anymore after so many years of being hurt and hungry. I watched him sleep and thought that maybe he wouldn't live to see the end of all this. And that thought squeezed my heart so tight. One afternoon, with a very weak voice, he took my hand. If I don't get to see them fall, he whispered, promise me you won't stop. I promise, I said with tears running down my face. This time, nobody will make us be quiet again. Outside the hospital, new faces started appearing. Men in nice suits, dark cars, phone calls with no voice on the other end, quiet warnings. I knew the people on the other side were moving too. But I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't the woman who was tricked in the past. Now I was the woman who found out why her life was stolen. And when a woman understands why she fell, she becomes much more dangerous than before she fell, because she's not just fighting to survive anymore. She's fighting to get back every single year they took from her. And I had just started. The hospital room was dark when I came back after another day of phone calls and meetings and uncomfortable quiet moments. Marcus slept badly, moving around. His chest going up and down like every breath was hard work. I sat next to him with the metal box still heavy in my thoughts. Outside, the night seemed too quiet for everything that was about to happen. When he opened his eyes, he looked at me with thanks and guilt mixed together. They've started moving, haven't they? He whispered. Yes, I said. They know someone has the papers. He closed his eyes, tired. Then there's no easy way out of this. There never was, I told him. But now, for the first time, it's not just you against them. We stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then I leaned closer to him. There's something else you haven't told me, Marcus. I know it. I can see it in your eyes. And I need all of it now. His face got hard and tight. For the first time since I found him again, I saw real terror in his eyes. That's the one thing I should never tell you, he said quietly. Because when you know, there will be no going back for you. There's no going back for me since I saw you picking up trash, I said. Speak. He took a long time to do it. Finally, with a broken voice, he said the words that froze me like ice. If I say the full names, they kill you. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Just like that, I whispered. Just like that, he said. They're not just crooked businessmen. There are people from the government, officials, judges who were paid off, people who make files disappear, and people who make other people disappear. A shiver went down my whole body. I understood this was bigger than I thought. It wasn't just about money. It was about real power. That's why I agreed to fall, he continued. Because when they put your picture on the table and said everything could look like a robbery or an accident, I knew I wasn't fighting for my life. I was fighting for yours. My eyes filled with tears. And I hated you for years, I said. I buried you in my heart like you were dead. That's what kept me alive, he said. Knowing that as long as you hated me, you were safe. I covered my face with both hands. The past was being written again inside my head. Every memory of being angry was now turning into a twisted, painful, extreme kind of love. Tell me the names, I said again. Even if they kill me tomorrow. He shook his head no. First, we have to make the proof safe. It's not enough to just have the box. They can erase tracks, start fires, make robberies happen, make accidents happen. We need the truth to come out in a way they can't cover up. How? Yes. With newspapers, with honest lawyers, with people from other countries watching if we have to. I took a deep breath. I understood this wasn't just a family problem anymore. It was a war against something rotten and broken. Then tell me about them, I said. Even without names yet. Marcus closed his eyes and started telling me in small pieces about a group of companies, bids that were fixed, millions of dollars going to the wrong places, projects that were never finished, government workers who signed papers in exchange for envelopes full of cash, lawyers whose job was to silence anyone who rebelled. He told me about an accountant who was found dead and they said he killed himself. About an engineer who ran away after being blamed for something fake. About a city councilman who died in what they called a home accident. They all knew too much, he whispered. Just like me. I, without knowing it, had been the thing they used to control him. That night, I left the hospital with a tight knot in my chest. I walked down the sidewalk looking at every stranger like they might be an enemy. For the first time I felt real, physical fear, not just sad fear. Even so, I didn't stop. The next day, with help from an old newspaper writer who had looked into big cases years ago, I started carefully pulling on threads. I showed him only a tiny part of the papers. Just enough for him to know this was real and huge. If this is true, he told me, more than one person is going to want you dead. They wanted me dead before, I said. I just didn't know it. That same afternoon I got my first direct warning. A folded paper was pushed under my apartment door. Leave the past alone or die with it. I shook, but I didn't back down. I went back to the hospital that night. Marcus looked at me as soon as I walked in. They warned you, didn't they? He nodded. Yes. They've started. Then the clock is ticking, he said. And not in our favor. He took my hand with a strength that didn't match his weak body. Listen to me carefully, he said. If this goes wrong, promise me you won't try to save me. Save yourself. No, I said without waiting. You already saved yourself once for me. Now we save ourselves together, or we fall together. His eyes filled with a feeling I couldn't name. That stubborn side of you was always your best thing and your most dangerous thing. I smiled for the first time in days. In that moment, I understood something very clearly. They had bet on my fear, on my silence, on me being weak. But I wasn't the woman who cleaned houses thinking life punished her for no reason anymore. Now I knew why they destroyed me. And I knew exactly who I was fighting against. Before we keep going, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do if you were me. Don't leave the video because what comes next will give you chills. That same night I made a final decision. I wasn't just going to clear Marcus's name. I was going to show the whole network that stole his life and mine. Even if that road cost me my peace. Even if it cost me my quiet old age. Even if it cost me my life. Because it wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about making sure a man's sacrifice didn't stay buried with trash and cans. And I was willing to make the people who thought they could play God with our lives shake with fear. The newspaper writer I turned to agreed to meet me in a quiet coffee shop far from the hospital. Far from my house. Far from everything that could give us away. I took with me only a small folder from the metal box. I couldn't risk everything. In our first meeting, he came with an old notebook and the eyes of someone who has seen too many truths and knows what it costs to tell them. Tell me why I should risk my life at 70 years old, he said straight out. I opened the folder. I let him see just 2 papers, one about money moved impossibly, one about a bid with fake signatures. The color left his face. This is like a bomb, he said quietly. Where did you get this? From a man they forced to disappear to save me. He didn't ask any more questions. He knew the answers wouldn't fit in that coffee shop. That same afternoon, I told Marcus that the process had started. I noticed he looked even more pale than before. The sickness was eating him from the inside with slow cruelty. "Then there's no return," he whispered. "There never was." That night, while the city slept, the first direct hit came. The newspaper writer called me. His voice sounded upset. "They broke into my office," he said. "They didn't take anything valuable, only files. And someone left a note on my desk." I swallowed hard. What did it say? "We only warn once." I felt an old, deep cold go down my spine. I knew with scary clarity that they were watching us very, very closely. I decided then to move everything to a place nobody would think of. A small safe box in a bank in a small town far from the big city. We put several copies of the files there. The newspaper writer kept others in a place he didn't want to tell me about. I kept one tiny copy as a last backup. That same week, a young city lawyer agreed to look at the material secretly. We met in his office after the sun went down. He looked at the names, the numbers, the contracts. "If this is real," he said with worried eyes, "we're talking about a network that's been working for more than 20 years. "It's real," I said. "My life was destroyed to hide it." He looked me in the eyes with a serious face I won't forget. "Then you're not just looking for personal justice. You're about to touch very powerful people." "They touched first," I said. The lawyer nodded. "I'm going to protect this file like it's my own family." I left there shaking, not from fear but from feeling dizzy. But the enemy didn't sleep. 2 nights later, when I came back to my rental house, I found the door open just a crack. Everything was turned upside down. Drawers pulled out. Pictures thrown on the floor. Nothing valuable was missing. Nothing except one thing. My old wedding photo album. The message was clear. "We know who you are. We know who you care about." That morning I hugged Marcus without saying a word. He understood everything. "Now they're going to attack where it hurts most," he whispered. "They already did before," I said. "Nothing breaks me like it used to." But I was lying because the fear for him could break me completely. Days later came the hit that almost destroyed us. Marcus got much worse all at once. High fever, trouble breathing. They moved him fast to a special care room. The doctor spoke to me with a hard voice I already knew. "If he survives the next 48 hours, he has a chance." I spent the whole night sitting outside the room with my eyes stuck on a white wall. I thought that maybe he would never see the guilty people fall. That maybe his sacrifice would stay incomplete. Guilt pressed on my chest like a heavy rock. When morning came, the lawyer called me. "We're going to do the first raids today." My heart skipped a beat. So soon. If we wait longer, they'll destroy everything. They're already trying. The next hours were a slow nightmare. Broken news, short calls, actions happening at the same time. Offices searched, computers taken, respected businessmen called in urgently. In the middle of the afternoon, the newspaper writer sent me one message. "This is going to explode." And it exploded. The first public victims of the network started to fall that same night. A company president arrested. A manager running away. An ex-government official handed over by his own political party to look good. The whole country started whispering about it. But the enemy fought back too. Leaving the hospital, a man tried to push me into the street where a car was coming that was too perfect to be an accident. A hospital helper saved me, tripping at the right moment and making me fall backward. The car went by, almost hitting me. I knew I had no room for mistakes anymore. That night, I sat next to Marcus's bed while he was still asleep. I talked to him like he could hear me. "They can't hide anymore," I told him. "Everything is starting to fall. Don't give up now." A quiet tear fell down my cheek. The next morning, he opened his eyes. "Are they still alive?" he asked with a voice I could barely hear. "Very alive and very nervous." He tried to smile. "Then it was worth it." I held his hand tight. "It's not over yet." 2 days later, the lawyer called me urgently. I walked into his office with my heart racing. We have proof to go to trial, he said. Names, money trails, recordings, everything. And the biggest ones, too. He stayed quiet for a second. Also you. I felt my legs shaking. Then it's now or never. Exactly. When I left there, I knew the story that started with trash bags was about to reach its breaking point. We weren't just two victims anymore. We were the crack that was making a whole empire fall apart. That night I told Marcus. They're going to fall, I whispered. All of them. He closed his eyes with a peace I hadn't seen before. Then I can go in peace when it's time. Don't talk like that, I begged him. Someone has to pay for the silence of good people too, he said. I understood then that the file hadn't just changed the story of a country. It had changed the future of a man who agreed to lose everything so I would keep breathing. And now, for the first time, his truth was about to be written with letters nobody could erase. The first name showed up on the news on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting next to Marcus's bed when the news lady said with a serious voice the name of a businessman everyone admired. I saw him on the screen in handcuffs with his face covered by a shaking hand. I felt a shiver go through my whole body. It wasn't happiness. It was dizziness. The truth had just crossed from being secret to being public. It started, I whispered. Marcus opened his eyes slowly and looked at the screen. I never thought I would live to see this, he said with a tiny voice. That same day the second and third fell. Raids in different parts of the city. Computers taken. Offices closed with police tape. The network started falling apart in front of everyone's eyes. The same men who for years walked around protected by power now put their heads down in front of cameras. But none of it was clean or easy. Every fall brought a fight back. Phone calls from people I didn't know to the hospital. Unknown people stopping at the door longer than normal. A note slipped under Marcus's wheelchair that said, "This isn't over." The lawyer called me urgently 2 days later. "We need your formal testimony," he told me. Not as his ex-wife, but as the main person protecting the papers. I felt a huge weight fall on my shoulders. Is it safe? At this point nothing is, he said. But without your testimony, some will try to make deals to get out. Said yes. The day of my statement, the courthouse was surrounded by reporters and cameras. Walking in, I felt every look go through me like sharp points. Me, a 67-year-old woman who for so long was invisible, was now the key piece in something shaking half the country. Inside the courtroom were them, some with perfect suits, others with broken dignity. I recognized 2 of the names Marcus had whispered to me in the hospital. I felt a cold shake in my hands, but I didn't stop. The lawyer started naming dates, numbers, contracts. Then he called me to the stand. "Do you recognize these papers?" he asked, showing me a folder. "Yes," I said. For years, I thought they were the reason for my pain. Today I know they were the tool of their crime. A whisper ran through the room. "Can you explain how they came to you?" I took a deep breath and told everything. The garage, the buried box, Marcus's confession, the proof, the threats, the being followed. I left nothing out. Every word was like a heavy stone falling on those men who for years played with moving lives like we were nothing. One of them stood up suddenly and pointed at me with anger. "This woman is lying," he shouted. "She's being controlled by a criminal." The judge ordered silence. "That woman," he said, looking at everyone seriously, "is the reason we're here today. And you gentlemen are the reason she lived marked by pain." I felt my knees go weak. The lawyer held my arm so I could sit down. Hours later, when the hearing ended, there were no doubts left. The proof was too strong. Several arrest orders were signed that same day. Some tried to make deals. Others said they were victims too. 2 asked for protection, scared of payback. The castle of power was falling apart from the inside. I went back to the hospital with my heart overflowing. Marcus was waiting for me, awake. "Did they fall?" he asked. "Yes," I said with tears. "They started to fall." He closed his eyes and smiled with a peace that hurt me. "Then I can rest a little." "Don't you dare give up now," I told him, squeezing his hand. The most important part is still missing. What's missing? He asked. Clearing your name, I said. 3 days later, the news came out that closed the circle. A high government official, until then untouchable, was arrested trying to leave the country with fake papers. On his computer, they found direct records of the illegal work. And among them, Marcus's name appeared as the main scapegoat with clear instructions to keep the fall on him to protect the top. The lawyer came in person to the hospital. Mr. Marcus, he said seriously, officially you are cleared of all blame. Your name has been cleared before the law. Marcus looked at me, not understanding. That means you were the victim of criminal blackmail, the lawyer finished. And that your sacrifice let us break apart one of the biggest networks in the country. Marcus started crying quietly. I hugged him carefully so I wouldn't hurt him. We did it, I whispered. After so many years, we did it. But justice always comes with a price. That same early morning, his body got worse without warning. Internal bleeding. Alarms going off. Doctors running. I stayed outside the emergency room with my hands pressed to my chest, begging a God I hadn't talked to for years. Endless hours passed. When the doctor finally came out, his face told me everything. We did what we could, he said quietly, but his body was very weak. I felt the world split in two. I walked into the room with crooked steps. Marcus was there connected to machines with his eyes closed. I came closer and took his hand. You carried the truth all the way to the end, I whispered. And now everyone knows it. He opened his eyes for the last time. He looked at me with a love I will never forget. It was worth it, he said barely. You're alive and they won't hate you because of me anymore. A quiet tear rolled down his cheek. I never hated you. I lied so he could leave in peace. He died with a small smile on his mouth. His death was small news compared to the scandal shaking the country. But for me it was an earthquake. I cried for him quietly, away from cameras, away from speeches, just me, his truth, and the weight of all the stolen years. Days later, when I buried Marcus, one of the lawyers came to me. There will be money paid back to you, he told me. And a public apology for his case. I looked at him, tired. None of that will bring back the years he lost, I said. But maybe it will stop others from losing them. That night, I went back alone to my house. I turned on a small light and sat on the bed with no strength left. The network had fallen. The guilty were in prison or running. The truth was written in all the newspapers. Justice had come. But the love that held all of that up was no longer there. Even so, I understood something that shook me. The revenge I had looked for wasn't to see them embarrassed, but to see the truth standing up. And that revenge was already done. The day after the funeral came with a gray, thick sky, like the world was also sad. I woke up in my empty house with a silence that wasn't a threat anymore but an absence. 4 years I had lived with the noise of anger, of fear, of doubt. Now all of that had ended. And with it Marcus had also ended. I sat on the bed, looking at my hands, waiting to feel something clear. Pain, relief, anger. But there was only a slow, heavy mix of everything. I went out to walk with no plan. The city was still alive, not caring about the man who had died to save me. People rushing, children going to school, people selling things and shouting about deals. Nobody knew that under my ribs beat a terrible, quiet story. Nobody knew what it cost to clear a name destroyed by criminals. That same day, I was called to the lawyer's office to close things that were still open. In a dark room, the lawyer, a secretary, and a state representative were waiting for me. They offered me coffee, which I said no to. "Ma'am," said the lawyer, "the case has been officially closed. All the main criminals have been processed. Some already convicted. Others waiting for sentencing." I nodded quietly. "Also," he continued, "the state has decided to pay you money back for the damage caused during all these years. There will also be a public event to recognize the injustice done to you and your ex-husband." I felt a knot in my throat. "He didn't live to hear those words," I said. "That weighs more than any money." The lawyer lowered his eyes. We know. And it's a debt that can never be fully paid. I signed papers with a steady hand that didn't feel like mine. I accepted the money for a very simple reason. Not for me, but so Marcus's sacrifice would have a real, touchable echo, proving that not everything stayed buried with him. When I left, newspaper reporters were waiting for me outside. Microphones, cameras, questions falling like rocks. How do you feel after everything that happened? What do you think of the criminal network? Do you forgive the responsible people? I didn't answer any of them. I walked among them with my head held high. Marcus had lived through pain in silence. I wasn't going to turn his story into a show. That night I went back home exhausted. On the table, a white envelope with no name on it was waiting for me. I opened it with worry that still hadn't fully left me. Inside was a folded paper with one handwritten sentence. He won. And so did you. There was no threat, no anger. Just a late acknowledgement from someone who probably understood there was nothing left to hide. I tore the paper and threw it in the trash. The past no longer had permission to touch my present. With the days, the noise of the scandal faded away. New news took over the headlines. New guilty people replaced the old ones in people's attention. Life went on like it always does. But mine was different. I sold the small house where I had lived during years of being poor and bought a simple, bright apartment with a big window facing a park. I didn't want fancy things. I didn't want to show off. I just wanted space to breathe without fear. I put few things in it. Table. 2 chairs. My books. The old photos saved from the pain. Among those photos was one of Marcus and me on our wedding day. I looked at it for a long time before deciding to put it in a simple frame on the dresser. Not as a memory of the husband who left me, but of the man who sacrificed himself without me knowing. I started living slowly. I learned to enjoy the small things. The hot coffee in the morning. The sun coming through the window. The sound of children playing in the plaza. For years, I had lived feeling like the world owed me something. Now I understood that the only thing it really owed me was peace. A month after the case closed, the public event was held. I didn't want to go, but the lawyer insisted. Not for you, he told me. But for history. Said yes. In the big hall of the courthouse, they read an official statement. They named Marcus as a victim of large-scale criminal blackmail. They said that he had been used as someone to blame. That his life had been destroyed to protect illegal interests. When they said his full name, I felt the air break in my chest. They invited me to the front. I walked with slow steps. The room watched me in silence. The lawyer handed me a folder with a final decision. On behalf of the state, he said, we ask for forgiveness for coming late. I took the folder. I didn't know what to say. There were not enough words for so much damage. Not enough for so much ending. That night, I went back home with a tired heart. I sat by the open window. The wind gently moved the curtains. I thought about the woman I was when Marcus disappeared. About the anger, the shame, the hunger, the hate that kept me standing for years. None of that had been for nothing, I understood. Every tear, every fall, every night with no answers had brought me to this point of truth. But the price had been very, very high. Sometimes it hurts to think that if I had known before, maybe I could have done something different. Then I understand that's not real. They had the power. We only had silence as a shield. And he chose to carry it for me. One day, looking through the box with the last papers I still kept, I found a small note folded between 2 contracts. It was old handwriting. I knew it right away. It was from Marcus. If you ever read this, it's because I am no longer here. Don't remember me as the man who fell, but as the one who loved you, even when he had to trick you to save you. Losing you was the highest price, but saving you was my only win. I cried like I hadn't cried in all those months. I cried without shame, without holding back, without pride. I cried for what was, for what couldn't be, for what he never got to live. With time, I learned to talk about him without my voice breaking. I learned to tell his story to whoever wanted to listen. Not as something sad, but as an extreme act of love. Some told me he had been a hero. I said he had just been a man with no choices who chose to save the one he loved. At 67 years old, I started over. Not with dreams of being young. Not with big promises. But with something harder and more valuable, truth. Today I walk without fear. I no longer look back searching for shadows. I no longer wait for hidden hits. I no longer hate the man who one day disappeared with no explanation. Today I know why he did it. And I know what he left me. He left me life. And although that gift came wrapped in pain, suffering, and silence, it was the greatest gift anyone could give me. Because thanks to his sacrifice, today I can say with a calm heart that I am still here. Alive. Free. And for the first time in many years in peace. Today I sit by the window of my small apartment and watch life pass by out there. And I still struggle to believe everything I survived. I hear the children playing in the park. I feel the sun coming slowly through the curtain. And for the first time in many years I'm not afraid. I no longer check who walks behind me. I no longer shake hearing a noise at the door. I no longer worry about every cup I bring to my mouth. For too long I lived thinking I had been left behind. That the man I loved destroyed me because he was selfish. That my pain had been the fault of his weakness. And it turns out it was the opposite. Turns out he carried my pain so I would keep breathing. It turns out he lost his life to save mine without me knowing it. We lost years that nobody will give back to us. Years of hate, of silence, of hunger, of shame. Years I lived believing I was alone in the world. And today I understand something that shakes me. All that time, even if I didn't know it, someone was paying for my freedom with his own prison sentence. I don't celebrate anyone's fall. I wasn't happy seeing them in jail. It didn't give me peace to see them defeated. My true peace came when I knew the truth. When his name was cleared. When I understood he hadn't lied to me because he was cruel, but because he loved me. Today I live with little, but I live calmly. I sleep in peace. I walk without fear. And every morning I give thanks for one simple and huge thing at the same time. I am still alive. And now I know why. At 67, I don't want revenge. I want silence. I want calm. I want to honor the sacrifice of a man who left carrying everything so I wouldn't carry anything. And I honor him by living. Living without fear. Living without anger. Living without chains. Because after so much pain, I also deserve to rest. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe.